as we mentioned on a call earlier in the week, Friday, I think it was. Yeah, the Bridger system kind of sits outside of the other conversations we were having, but I know you're keen to have a look at it to see how it compares to Comply Advantage. Paul's worked with the system for a very long time, and kindly offered to help sort of talk you through it and show you how it works. Are there any key things you want to sort of be sure that it does, so that we can make sure we tick those off for you?
So we want to make sure that the system will identify not only the sanctioned persons or companies, but close relatives or partners or things like that. That I think uh, Lexi does. And we would like to see the payload that we receive, or like the information that we'll get, if there's a match or if there's a close match, or just to make sure like we have all that we need in this payload.
Absolutely, that's nice and straightforward. It's nice to meet you both. Do you want me to start running the demo, Adam?
Yeah, I think jump straight in, and obviously ask questions as you go. But it's pretty straightforward. What you're looking for is exactly what it does, as I mentioned on Friday. So hopefully it'll give you that reassurance.
Yeah, absolutely. What you've just said, what you're looking for, you've kind of summed Bridger up. I can almost stop you, to be honest. But so what I'll do is I'll run a few examples for you, and I'll show how we remediate some results and where Bridger does differ from what you're currently using. So from my understanding, it's name screening you're looking to do. And have you got a method that you're going to look to get data into Bridger via manual upload, manual keying in, API or SFTP?
Well, it's mostly going to be done through API.
Perfect. Nice and straightforward. Well, straightforward from my point of view. From yours, not so, because obviously you've got the integration to do and such, but it's not too bad. We've got some API documentation we can share with you. Okay, so this is Bridger, and it's designed to give you the results for PEP, sanctions, adverse media, enforcements, fraud, everything you wouldn't necessarily want to find. As I mentioned, there's a multitude of ways you can get data into Bridger, and that's either manually, keying in, manual upload, API, or SFTP. And then it's just a case of working the alerts that you get sent back. So just to show you initially what you said, you want to find close matches to companies. There's one specific result that I can think of that's always a little bit of a shocker when I demo it. Now, if we do Holland and Barrett, that nice little green shop on every high street in the UK. Now, we've got a number of different hits here. Let's take the first one here, Holland and Barrett Group. It's key to say as well, at the moment, I've got a number of alerts because I'm not using any remediation technology just yet, but I will get to that shortly. So you can see the Holland and Barrett are listed here. The category is ownership or control. So you can see this company is owned or controlled by a company that is sanctioned by the HM Treasury. So what you can do then, you've got the associations here, and you can start working your way up the corporate chain. So Holland & Barrett Retail, run by Holland & Barrett International. See that these are ownership or controlled as well. Then we go to L1R HB, letter 1. And then we've got they are still owned by letter 1 Holding SA. And then you've got a number of associated entities here, enforcements in Ukraine, multiple reasons for listed. And then what you actually find is the owner here.
Yeah, we can see that.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry. Yeah, this is really good. One more thing. We actually had a case maybe about a year ago where we had a payment incoming from a company that in the end it turned out to be sanctioned. Not, I mean, they changed their name, not to be identified. And then, but they were still sanctioned in certain European countries, but the ownership was like under 5%. Is
Mhm.
it possible to maybe run a demo on that name just to make sure, like how I can put it into the chat if you want.
Always give it a go. Nothing like a live example. I'm
Yeah,
not going to use any remediation technology again, just to widen the search. Could I take the company's name, please?
yeah, it's a pure Fert. It's PUREFERT
Um,
FER, yeah, Ltd.
which is found.
Mm.
Now, what were you expecting to see? So let me just check to make sure my remediation isn't doing anything it shouldn't be there. So I'm going to use sanction screening only.
Pure Fert.
Okay.
No.
So
Okay.
there are ways
So,
and means we can address this, but carry on.
yeah. So what happened is they were part of the fertilizer group from Russia. And after sanctions kicked in, they changed the ownership structure.
To avoid the sanctions.
And they also changed their name. So
Okay.
kind of a smart move, but we were able to identify that, but just want to see if it can be automated.
Okay, so there are things that we can do in this situation. Behind world compliance, or behind Bridger is world compliance, which is the data that's used to run these searches. But behind world compliance is the world compliance research team. Now, there are close on 500 people that work on that team, and their task is to keep our database as up to date as possible. Sanctions results, they normally aim to get those done within their SLA of 8 hours, just to give you some comfort. When everything kicked off in Russia and Ukraine a number of years ago now, there was a number of sanctions thrown at Russia, and they got every one of them done and uploaded into our work compliance database within 4 hours. They were incredibly quick. You will have direct access to them. It doesn't cost you anything. You will have access to the team's email address. Should you come across something like this, we can send it to them. And if they find something, it will be in our database rapid.
Okay. One more thing. So maybe it doesn't show up because the ownership structure has actually changed, and the sanctioned entity owns, well, at least owned at the time we got the transaction. It was like under, what was maybe 5 or 6%. So
We go
maybe
down to
that's why.
0.1.
Oh, I see. Let's see.
So that's something we need to be aware of. I will have a look into that myself and flag that up to the World Compliance Research team just to see if there's any
Sure.
justification why it's not there, or if it's something that's not been seen. If you've got companies conducting clever maneuvering.
Yeah, yeah. So we can share our research on that if you want somewhere down the line. But anyway, it's okay because at least like we can do our research, but we usually do it when certain threshold of payment or if the payment comes from high risk countries such as Serbia, like in that case. But we can still do sanctions check and adverse media checks with
Yeah,
your tool, guys, just for all payments. Because you got to do that.
yeah, that makes sense. No problem at all. And like I said, we've got the World Compliance Research team here to help you. So what I'm going to do now is throw some records at Bridger. So I've got a file of 3,000 individuals. I'm going to run 3 different scenarios. I'm assuming you, given your example there, you run businesses and individuals in that case.
Well, we mostly run businesses, but the
Perfect.
thing is that we onboard newly formed companies that don't have track record, and basically it goes down to screening individuals behind the companies most of the time.
Okay, no problem. And do you keep the individuals' data separate from the businesses, or do you keep it in one kind of file?
Well, they are separate entities in our database, but I mean they're always connected to the company that
Perfect. Yeah, I'm only asking because we've got a format set up here, and I've got mine set up that businesses and individuals be screened separately. Now you can set the entity type to unknown and conduct businesses and individuals in the same file, so it doesn't matter too much. And if you're going to be doing this via API, it doesn't make a difference anyway. So the file that I've got is 3,000 individuals. We've got divisions, which I will come into shortly. I'll let the data start running, and I'll talk about the divisions and such. I'm going to leave it as default. Predefined search. Now, these are the rules that we are going to apply to this batch. So I'm initially going to run this with no rules. And then you've got who do you want the result to go to? A particular person, a particular team, or particular divisions, entirely up to you. I'm going to enable this so all the administrators can access the results. And you want the administrators to know when the batch is complete or when the batch generates alerts. Let's start. I'm going to do this 2 more times, but I'll do it a lot quicker this time. File, individuals, I'll leave that there. I'm going to choose with false positive rules this time. Start. Time. Rules. And this time I'm going to add the false positive rules and my PEP rules that I've created. There we go. So we will have 3 files running, 3,000 names in each. It'll fly through that, so we're not going to see much progress going on. But when I was, any questions while that's going?
Well, technically everything is quite clear. One more thing is that I have is if like we have to do ongoing monitoring for PEPs and sanctions like on a daily basis. Does that mean that we'll have to upload the whole database every day to your system, and you get and well you check through them well with a like single request per day? I mean, multiple requests per day, or is it? Do you have a sort of a monitoring on your side where we would get a webhook if someone from the previously uploaded file would match the sanctions or PEP rules or anything like that?
So you can do this via API where you send in all the records every day if you wanted to, or the most common way companies achieve this is via SFTP. So all you would need to do is create an SFTP location on your site, on your server, and connect Bridger to it via the PGP key. And then Bridger will do one of 2 things for you. It will either screen the data every night at 11:59 p.m. You can ask Bridger to delete the file afterwards if you want to, but if you want to achieve ongoing monitoring, that's almost a little redundant. Or you can have Bridger screen in proactively. So say OFAC sanctions was to update at 4 o'clock this afternoon, and that is one of the sources you want to screen. Bridger would identify that in our database, OFAC is updated. That's the source you're interested in screening, screen that file immediately. So they're the 2 different ways Bridger can do that for you. SFTP is just the easiest way to achieve that, so you're not sending hundreds, thousands of API calls.
Okay.
Any other questions?
No, everything's yeah. Mm-hmm.
No problem. So in that time, Bridger has handled the 9,000 requests. And let's start at the bottom. World compliance data class. So this is where I have submitted that file with no kind of predefined searches set up. So we're not telling Bridger remediate things if or. And we've got 2,932 results to go through, 100,000 total alerts. It's too much. By the time you or your team have completed that, it'll be time to start screening all over again. So then the second option we got is when I've applied some relatively basic false positive rules. Now we're taking that down to 104 alerts and 130 total matches. Then lastly, we've got some basic PEP rules that I've added in as well. And that's taking this down to 38 alerts. So as you can see, we've gone from just shy of 3,000 to just shy of 40, and this is what the alerts would look like. In a minute, I will talk you through what rules I put in place to bring that down, but I just want to show you the actual results. So let's take James Z. Bell here. So we've got your customer information at the top, James Z. Bell. We know he was born in March 1993. We don't know the actual day. This is the address, and we know he's in the UK. This person doesn't exist, by the way. Everything about that is false, but the result we're looking at is real. So he's matched to James Bell. So we've got a photograph of him. So if you've ever seen your customer's documentation, passport, this could be a really quick remediation exercise for you. You could say, seen customer's document, photo not a match, false positive.
I'm sorry, is the photograph, will the photograph be available if we make an API call? Like, is there going to be a link to download the photo? Is what we could do, we could do image matching from our system with your data to automate.
It's been done once in the US with us. I'll be honest, it was quite a big project. It can be achieved. Otherwise, you will have it all available in Bridger. You will have the World Compliance link as well. But it's something that we'd need to potentially take offline. I can have a chat with Adam about it. Okay. If that's okay.
Sure.
Brilliant. So then we come down to the reason listed. So Executive Director of Communications at the Bank of England. He's currently alive. The last of his update was 2021, so nothing's really changed. The PEP that he's been categorized at. Any comments, which should be his career. And underneath that, you've got the source links, which further verify why this person should be listed. So what we're going to say in this case is this isn't a match. We've seen the customer's documentation. We're going to mark that as a false positive. Positive. We're going to add it to our accept list, and you can leave any notes you want. The same no match. So at the bottom now, your record history is evolving. So you've got evidence of when the alert was generated, who it was assigned to, the false positive match, any notes captured verbatim. So anything you type will be captured there, and that's it. So nice and straightforward. What will happen with James Bell now is if your data was to screen again tonight, James Bell will be screened again. But because we've remediated this alert, you're not going to have to go through this again because Bridge is going to be able to identify, we've already identified this as a false positive. So that's a nice example of where it's gone straightforward. Let's take this in. Okay, Aaron Smith. So your customer information, again, we know the month and year, we don't know the day. Matched to Aaron Smith with a 98 confidence score. Is it a photo of Aaron? Maybe not this time. So there's not going to be photographs of everyone, as you can imagine, because there are, well, millions of PEPs. And we can see the Director of the Corporate Service at National Archives. Again, very basic PEP. But what we're going to say in this example is there's not a photograph. We maybe want to investigate this a little bit further. So we're going to go to potentially true match to escalate it on. And we're going to assign, you can assign this then to someone more senior. So if you've got a compliance officer that's going to work in these alerts as and when they're coming up, and there's a match that you potentially want to investigate, they can assign that to you. So I'm going to assign it to myself, not to any of my colleagues in email. And I'm going to leave it as undetermined, and they can send notes directly to you. Say potential match. It'll be up to you then to make whatever decision that you want to, or whoever it is that's been assigned that record. And that's it. That's kind of all there is to how you're going to manage the alerts. It's very, very simple and straightforward. Any questions about that so far?
No, it's quite clear. Thank you.
Fantastic. So what I'm going to go into next is the predefined searches, which is how I brought it down from 3,000 alerts down to sub 40. Now, I've got a number of different levels of screening set up. You can have as many of these as you want. The initial screening that I used that generated all of those alerts is this. I've got a default minimum score of 85, which, as I'm sure you're aware, when you look at a PEPs and adverse media, that's low. I'm not a consultant, so I can't tell you what to do or give advice, but I can just tell you from what I've seen in the industry, that's pretty low for adverse media and PEPs. We go into modify. Then we've opted to screen the entire world compliance database without any kind of modifications or rules. And we haven't asked it to ignore anything like formerly known as, normally known as, and so on. Now, we haven't asked it to ignore weak AKAs. When we say search against the entire screening list, we can turn that off. And then we can go into each category. So PEP is the one where you're going to be able to have the most impact. So in here, as a rule of thumb, if everything is unticked, that means everything is active. It's only when you start ticking things, it starts picking apart. So if you only want to see PEP, well, not necessarily PEPs in any segment that we've got in here, if you only want to focus on certain countries, that can be achieved. Administrative level, then you've got your different types of PEP. So are there any particular types you want to discount? So your local and metro, for example, really small level PEPs that may not hold enough power for you to need to investigate. The subcategory, which is all the different categories of PEP that there are. So are there any of those that you wouldn't want to see the results come back for? Relationships. So is this a PEP because they're an associate? So for example, Donald Trump's friend, this would be a PEP by association or a domestic PEP. Deceased. Now, this is a little bit harder to do for PEPs, to be fair, because there are so many of them and there's not always a crazy amount of data in the public domain on them. But the power of the World Compliance Research Team conducting the updates to World Compliance manually is they get closer to the sources and they will have a deeper dive into that person to see if we can find out, has this person died? If so, we will add that into Bridger. So it's an option for you to only see results where people are alive, but we don't know. Obviously, NA would be associated to companies because that just doesn't count. But as an example there, if you were unlucky enough to have a customer that goes by the name of Osama bin Laden and you were using deceased as an option, you wouldn't see the result come back for the known dead terrorist. Status. Now, with PEP, this is incredibly powerful. A massive part of our database is made up of former PEPs, because as I'm sure you're aware, in the US, you can become a PEP for sneezing on a Wednesday. It's bonkers. What you can do here is ask Bridger to remove PEPs from your results if they've been out of position for 1 year, 2 year, 5 year, less than 6 months, or over 5 years. So in that, I'll go through the rules in a minute just to show you what I did. But that is incredibly powerful for making sure your team isn't spending a load of time working on former PEPs when you just don't need to see them. Country specific. So if it's a PEP that is specifically in a certain country or country's government. You've got exactly the same options then for sanctions, enforcement, adverse media. Adverse media, you would have subcategories. So this is every category of adverse media that we cover. Again, it will be all the same sources, all the same categories. Then you've got state-owned entities where you can have a look at, so you've got the countries there, domains, so what type of industry, subcategory, majority, minority, and such. Total minimum ownership, as I mentioned, we go down below 1%. Status, if the company is active or inactive. Then you've got registrations, which is going to be vessels and marijuana authorized businesses. Then additional segments, which is your payments. So SWIFT, BIC, ownership or control. So if we weren't using ownership or control, we wouldn't have found the Association of Holland and Barrett to Letter One Holdings ultimately up to Russian money. I know there's an awful lot to digest here, but if you've got any questions about this so far, please stop me.
No, thank you actually, because I mean you got a lot to digest. We we'll be also researching the documentation to see how that's implementable in API. But we will probably have access to the user interface at some point. Just but anyway, most of them checks are usually done through API in our system.
Brilliant. Brilliant. So what we've gone through here with the World Compliance Data Plus, that is one of the things that really makes Bridger powerful, is the fact that we've got the photographs in there now to help you conduct that kind of seamless remediation. And when looking at PEPs, being able to discount former PEPs, it's crazy the amount of time that can save you. So from there, then we've got other rules that we can use in Bridger to further remediate results. So if a result was to get through your data and it was identified that, yeah, it's a PEP that we are interested in seeing results on, then we can ask Bridger to start using false positive rules. So then we've got date of birth tolerances. So we could say, if on your customer record where you've potentially got date of birth, there is a difference in the date of birth on the PEP that you've got as a result, should there be a date of birth available, and it's more than 12 months, discount as false positive. That 12 months can be changed to anything you want. Addresses. Not so good for individuals, because finding a person's address in the public domain is statistically unlikely, as you can imagine. But for companies, this can be a fantastic remediation, because we will go down to the city and registered offices and such. So that can help you with screening businesses. Entity type is only useful if you are submitting your individuals and businesses separately, because you can tell Bridger that it's an individual you're screening or a business you're screening, and then it won't generate results for the other. So Paul Johns wouldn't generate an alert for Paul Johns Limited. IDs. The only time really you're going to find much use out of that is sanctions these days, because again, you're not really going to find a person's ID details in the public domain. But for sanctioned individuals, it is quite common their passport details do get given out, so companies have a means of picking them up. So if you were to submit someone's ID, it could match to a known ID of a sanctioned entity, but otherwise it's not going to do anything for adverse media or PEPs. Countries. So this is the country code rule that's in Bridger. Now, what I mean by this is where we have got, say you've generated an alert for someone, for me, and you've got my name and my date of birth. And the only match you've got is name. There's no match on date of birth or country, sorry. So you've got my name, my date of birth, and my country. So you know Paul Johns, date of birth in the UK. Now, should the only match you get contain just the name, because there's no secondary identifier information, it wouldn't look globally. It would look globally if the country is a match or the date of birth is a match. So as long as you've got a secondary identifier, then you will start looking outside of the person's home country. Otherwise, it's not going to fill your, well, as an example, if you were to type Mohammed, the amount of results you get would be crazy. If you've got secondary identifiers, it will whittle that down then to the right countries and close matches on date of birth or within your date of birth tolerance. Citizenship and phone numbers, it's not really in the Bridger anymore. GDPR's a big one to thank for that one. But again, finding someone's phone number in the public domain, it's just not going to happen. And then lastly, gender, which is pretty self-explanatory. If you're capturing someone's gender, it can be pretty useful for discounting unisex names, but otherwise that's about as far as that's going to go. You see, there are loads of other options and things that you can do here. A lot of it is cosmetic. So, for example, if you remember back to where I escalated that alert, I had a question mark, a cross, and a tick. Now, if I tick that, that becomes enabled, and someone has to set it to true match or false positive in order to escalate. So nothing can be escalated without someone consciously making a decision that it's true match or false positive. So that can be turned on or off if you want to speed things up a little bit, maybe you don't want to do that. But if you want to remove the kind of human error or mistakes, then you tick that. The other one that I would always opt to use is when you are getting alerts sent back to you and Bridger knows it's a false positive, you can ask Bridger to leave the alert status open, but just flag it up as an automatic false positive. If that's what you want, you can absolutely have that. But if Bridger's already said that it's a false positive, there are ways you can pull it out of Bridger via the alerts tab, rather than having everything open and everything's got to be closed. So any questions about that?
No, it's quite clear. Thank you.
No? Okay. So I'm just going to show you very quickly the PEP rules that I set up, which the difference in the screen in I had. It's down from 3,000. So I didn't ask it to ignore any of the types of names or abbreviations. The only thing I changed in there is I don't want to see the inactive PEPs for sub 1 year, sub 2 year, sub 6 months. Oh no, sorry, that's what I do want to see. I want to see active 1 year, 2 years, 6 months, but inactive for 5 years or more than 5 years. That's all I removed. To drop the results that much was the PEPs that have been inactive for 5 years or more. You have a look, that's the only box where I've got anything changed. So you'd see a line in there or a line up there showing you've got something changed. That's all I did, was remove those PEPs. So that's the kind of pain the former PEPs can cause. So any questions? Or anything you want to know a little bit more about or you want to see? Because we're kind of coming to the end of the demo, to be honest.
Well, no, actually, everything that I saw is straightforward. We might, we may want to try maybe just send over a couple of test cases to you if it's possible.
I'll leave that with Adam.
Yeah.
Brilliant. So do you need to see anything like alerts and how you pull queries or reports?
Well, yeah, it's better. Well, if you could show the reports, that's good. And maybe if you could share the API documentation later, that's something that we may need to assess.
Yeah, no problem at all.
Resources
Problem. So I've got the API documentation ready to hand. I'll send that over to you, Adam. Right. So the reports, you've got two different types. System history, which is an audit log and evidence of anything that happens in Bridger. You cannot elude this. And then you've got real-time search reports called out separately, which is where names are typed in manually. So for example, if we were to, yeah, April 24 is fine. We'll do administrator PDF format. Nope, version we want default and down. Take a second. But what we're looking at now is any manual searches that have been run since April. No activity on here. Tell you what, I'll oh no, there we go, it's done. I'll download on the end. There we go. So in the report, what you get back is who ran the report, when, the alert ID, what predefined search was used, and the name. So you've got a full audit history of who's been running what manually in Bridger throughout that time period. And you can go back as far as you want.
So this is basically the trail audit, right? Okay.
Yeah, for manual searches. If you're looking for an audit trail of anything else, so for example, here, set list, we're going to custom to today. So what we want to find out is who, what, there we go, to the accept list today. So we can see right now you can download this as well if you wanted to. Your system history. Oh, I was just pulling through the. Do not know. I've played about with the settings somewhere. You can download your system history here, as you can see. So you can filter this down by accept lists, alert decisions. So where something has been escalated, alert view, get all there. So where things have been whitelisted, user access. So if someone's been playing about with someone's users, stuff like that. That's probably another good point. Users, very, very easy to manage in Bridger. You can have as many as you want. It's a case of coming into administration, users, and adding a user. And it's as simple as that. And that's kind of it, to be honest.
Okay. Yeah, thank you so much. It's really helpful.
No problem. If it's any use to you at all, if you did decide to start using Bridger, you'd be assigned professional services from our end, and they'd spend up to 2 days with you getting the account set up, predefined searches set up, your teams trained and such. So you get all the support to make sure Bridger is working as you need it to.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier that you have a preset PEP identification rules. Are you going to be able to share those? Well, we do have those internally, but maybe we'd like to also see like how you set those rules. Are those?
They were just my rules, to be honest. They're nothing kind of official.
Oh,
I can certainly share my template with you, but we don't provide a kind of template and say this is what you should be doing, because we're not consultants.
I understand, yeah. I understand. Okay, yeah.
Brilliant.
Okay.
Well, I'm not going
Thank you so
anywhere.
much.
I'll hand back to Adam.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. So yeah, that was it, as you said. So you've got the commercials for it. This is one of those products where everything's wrapped in, as Paul said. So you get some consultancy days as part of the package. They'll do some training. We do also offer online training courses free of charge. So if you have members that want to brush up or learn, or they join a company and you want them to do some training, that's always ongoing. You can just book a session for them to join sort of general customer training courses. So it's a nice, easy, straightforward service, really. So yeah, again, how do you feel about it?
Well, that's actually what we were looking for. So
Right.
I just wanted to make sure that everything that we knew about the solution works fine via API, and the depth of the of the research is acceptable for us, and I think it is. So yeah, we're gonna move on with that. Regarding the
Right.
test cases, if we have a couple, that would be great too.
Yeah, I'm not sure where we stand on that. Send them to me, and I'll see if I can get someone to do a couple of searches and send back a report. But it does depend on the rules and how we set it up. So it's one of those things that it's probably Let me have a chat into and Paul, if you want anything to add. Let's see what you hand up.
I've run it by Rich Saunders.
Okay. Great, I'll do that then, and so we can give you. Obviously, it'll vary because obviously it's quite bespoke in terms of how to set the rules up. But send me them across, and I'll try and get someone to have a look at them and give you some reassurance around those.
Okay, so yeah, great. Then what we could do is anyway, we'll have to allocate some resources to for the integration. And I think on the last call I mentioned the timelines. In the meantime, if you have any like the contract or the DSA that we will need to sign, that would be great. We can just start with that. Yeah,
that sounds good, because like I say, it doesn't we can get working on that, because that'll take a bit of time. So then hopefully by the time you get nearer the time when you have a resource available, I know you were saying Q1, so we can get all the paperwork in place for the end of the year. Then that means you can start from January 1st.
Great.
Brilliant. Okay, great stuff.
Thank you so much, and let's keep in touch.
Great.
Have a great.
Very welcome. Nice to meet you both.
Yeah, bye bye.
Thanks so much. Thank you. Bye bye.
Thanks, Paul.